We just finished with carbohydrate digestion. Now we are going to look at the regulation of blood glucose in our bodies. The level of glucose in the blood is closely regulated within a fairly narrow range. There are two main hormones, both insulin and glucagon, that control the level of glucose in the blood. Insulin is a hormone secreted by the pancreas. It is transported in our blood throughout the body. It helps transport glucose from the blood into cells, and it stimulates the liver and muscles to take up glucose and convert it to glycogen. Glucose molecules are too large to cross the cell membranes independently. Insulin can be thought of as the key that opens the gate of the cell membrane, enabling the transport of glucose into the cell where it is then used as energy. Here you can see a graphic of insulin opening that gate so that glucose can enter the cell. Glucagon is the other hormone secreted by the pancreas that regulates glucose levels. It stimulates the breakdown of glycogen into glucose to make glucose available to the cells of the body. It also stimulates gluconeogenesis, which is the production of new glucose from amino acids. When you have not eaten for a period of time, blood glucose levels decline. The decrease in glucose stimulates the pancreas to secrete the hormone glucagon. Glucagon is the exact opposite of insulin. When blood glucose levels are low, the pancreas secretes glucagon. Glucagon enters the liver and stimulates the breakdown of glycogen into glucose where it is released into the bloodstream. Glycemic index is a way to measure a food's ability to raise or raise blood glucose levels. Foods with a low glycemic index cause mild fluctuation in blood glucose levels, are better for people with diabetes, and are generally higher in fiber. They may reduce the risk of heart disease, colon cancer, and prostate cancer. Glycemic load is kind of the number of grams of carbohydrate it contains multiplied by the glycemic index of that carbohydrate. So the type of carbohydrate, the way the food is prepared, and the fat and fiber content can all affect how quickly the body absorbs it. Most of the time, we eat our foods combined into a meal. Therefore, the glycemic index of the total meal is more important than ranking each food. Glycemic index is very hard for most people to incorporate into their daily lives, so it's really easier to encourage people to eat a variety of fiber-rich, low-processed foods, since they typically contain a lower glycemic index than low-fiber, highly processed foods. How much carbohydrate do we need? Well, the RDA is 130 grams per day just to supply the brain with glucose. This does not include the amount of carbohydrates we need for daily activities or for exercise, just to support the brain. As you recall, 45 to 65% of the daily calories should be consumed in the form of carbohydrate, and we should always focus on high fiber foods that are low in added sugars. Most Americans do eat too much added sugar. Sugars added to foods occur during processing or preparation. This does not include foods that have naturally occurring sugars. The most common source of added sugar is soft drinks. Typical sources are cookies, candy, and fruit drinks. Unexpected sources include peanut butter, flavored rice mixes, canned soups, and pasta sauces. Added sugars are not chemically different from naturally occurring sugars, but they typically have fewer vitamins. So if you have a cup of 100% fruit juice versus a cup of fruit drink, you're going to actually get probably more vitamins from the 100% juice. The average American drinks an average of 40 gallons of sweetened soda per year per person. One 12-ounce soda contains 10 teaspoons of sugar. Therefore, the average American consumes 267 cups of sugar from sweetened soft drinks in 1 year. Problems associated with eating too much sugar include dental problems and tooth decay. There's really not association with hyperactivity, although the long-term effects have not been studied. There is an association with increases in your LDL cholesterol and your triglyceride levels. There's an association with decreased levels of your HDL cholesterol, Sugar does not cause diabetes, but it may contribute to obesity. A recent study found that for every extra sugared soft drink a child consumes per day, the risk of obesity increases by 60%. Most Americans eat far too little fiber-rich carbohydrate. The adequate intake of fiber is 14 grams per 1,000 calories per day, or a better rule of thumb is 25 grams a day for women and 38 grams per day for men. Most Americans really only get 12 to 18 grams of fiber per day. Whole grain foods are much more healthful sources than foods with added sugar or fiber. So you can look for whole grains, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and legumes. The table on page 127 has good practical recommendations for increasing fiber intake. For example, choose breakfast cereals with 4 grams of fiber per serving. Eat your fruit with the skin on it. Another good rule of thumb is to choose your products that have about 2 grams of fiber per 100 calories. Nutritive sweeteners contain 4 calories of energy per gram. Those include sucrose, fructose, honey, and brown sugar. Please don't confuse nutritive with nutritious. Nutritive means that it contributes to energy intake. Sugar alcohols contain 2 to 3 calories of energy per gram. They have a decreased glycemic response and decreased risk for dental caries. Sugar alcohols can cause diarrhea because they attract water into the large intestine. Then there's the non-nutritive alternative sweeteners. They provide little or no energy. They are developed to sweeten foods without causing tooth decay or weight gain. Contrary to popular belief, alternative sweeteners have been determined safe for adults and children and people with diabetes. There is no acceptable daily intake for saccharin, and it was removed from the list of cancer-causing agents in 2000. They deemed the amount of saccharin it would take to cause cancer is well above what most people would consume or what anybody would consume. It is very, very, very high. There are acceptable daily intakes for aspartame, which is equal, things like Sunnet or Sweet One and Splenda. The ADI has a 100-fold safety factor included in it, so there are no adverse effects if you consume the ADI or below over a lifetime. For example, the ADI for aspartame is 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Is high fructose corn syrup the cause of obesity? High fructose corn syrup is made by converting the starch in corn to glucose and converting some of the glucose to fructose, and fructose is sweeter than glucose. Fructose is absorbed further down the small intestine and does not stimulate an insulin release from the pancreas. This could lead to an increased energy intake. Increased obesity rates may, however, be due to increased intakes of sweetened soft drinks rather than just intake of corn syrup alone. More research needs to be done. If you consume 26 ounces of soft drink each day, this is equivalent to an extra 400 calories per day, and most of the time people don't feel full or satisfied after drinking 400 calories of a soft drink like they would from eating 400 calories in a meal. Diabetes. This is the in-depth section of your book. And diabetes is the inability to regulate blood glucose levels. There are 3 types, type 1, type 2, and gestational. We won't really get into gestational diabetes that much, but it occurs during pregnancy, and they always test for it in the second trimester. Uncontrolled diabetes can cause infections, nerve damage, kidney damage, blindness, seizures, stroke, cardiovascular disease, and it can be fatal. Nerve damage can lead for the need for amputations. This happens because you lose feeling in those nerve endings, like in your toes or your feet. Somebody may step on something, cut their foot, get something lodged in their foot, not know it's there because their nerves aren't working appropriately, and then it becomes infected, and the infection is so far gone that they have to treat it with amputation of a toe or a foot or whatever. On table 1, this is also in your book. These are symptoms of type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, the most common one is frequent urination. Type 2 diabetes, it can have the same as type 1, only they have a few extras in there like frequent infections, blurred vision, cuts or bruises that are slow to heal, tingling or numbness in the hands or feet. This is the nerve damage, reoccurring skin, gum, or bladder infections. Type 1 diabetes accounts for 10% of all cases of diabetes. The body does not produce enough insulin, creates a high blood sugar or glucose levels. Key warning sign is frequent urination, may lead to ketoacidosis, coma, or death. Remember, that's a blood acidity. It may be an autoimmune disease. They're not sure about that. Most frequently, it's diagnosed in adolescence. It does have a genetic link, so if you have a parent or grandparent with type 1 diabetes, you are more prone to having type 1 diabetes. The only treatment is insulin injections. Insulin cannot be taken orally because it would be digested and broken down before entering the bloodstream. Type 2 diabetes develops progressively over time. Body cells become resistant to insulin. Obesity is the most common trigger. Eventually, the pancreas may become unable to produce any insulin. Who is at risk for diabetes? Well, if obesity, genetics, physical inactivity, and increased overall risk for diabetes, all of those. Also, metabolic syndrome, which includes a high waist circumference. A high waist circumference for a woman is greater than 35 inches, and for men, it's greater than 40 inches waist circumference. High blood pressure, high blood lipids, or high blood glucose all increase risk for type 2 diabetes. Increased age increases your risk, but younger people and even children are now commonly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Most cases develop over the age of 45, and 23% of Americans over the age of 60 now have type 2 diabetes. How is diabetes prevented? Well, you can eat a healthful diet, get daily exercise, and keep a healthful body weight. It can also be controlled by eating slightly fewer carbohydrates and slightly more protein and fat. That may help regulate the blood glucose levels. Also, it's a good idea to consult a dietitian to get on a good meal plan or eating plan that suits your lifestyle. Weight loss of 10 to 30 pounds may help with the recognition of glucose at the glucose receptor sites, oral medication or insulin, and also avoid alcoholic beverages, which can cause hypoglycemia. Fiber is also helpful in controlling glucose levels. Now that we are finishing up with this lecture, I would like you to prepare for a short quiz over this material and the Pearson video that you watched on added sugar. That Pearson video is about 2.5 to 3 minutes in length. It is on the Blackboard site, or you can access it through Chapter 4 of your Pearson My Lab Nutrition Lab. This quiz will be in Lockdown Browser till February 1st at 10 p.m. And the password for quiz number 2 is fiber, and fiber should be typed in all lowercase. I hope you all have a great week and are getting good progress on your assignments that are due February 1st and February 5th, and I look forward to seeing you all on February 5th. Thank you very much.